Revelation 2736. From the 13th of May 1943. Transmission of thoughts from the kingdom of light to earth. Through the transmission of thoughts from the kingdom of light to earth, extraordinary knowledge can be imparted to people in a way that does not seem supernatural at all. And people do not take offense at it either, because they consider the thought material to have been gained by them. And yet, the beings from the spiritual kingdom are active, otherwise the human being would be completely without thoughts. Not counting the purely earthly thoughts, which are merely functions of the bodily organs. The human being does not know what the thought is. He sees himself as the creator of every thought and yet is only a receiving station for the emanation of the beings in the kingdom of the beyond. Thought is therefore the perpetual flow of strength which can, however, have a good or bad effect, depending on the will of the human being is the source of this flow of strength. Just as people on earth exchange thoughts with each other, the beings in the beyond also try to express themselves. And they can only do this mentally, since thought activity is their actual life. The actual thought from human being to human being is also first born in the heart before the human being expresses it. And it first has to be placed in the heart by those powers, thus the being on the other side speaks to the human being beforehand, so to speak, however not audibly but only mentally. And depending on the human being's will he utilizes the thoughts. The content of the thoughts transmitted to the human being also corresponds to the degree of maturity of the givers. The beings of light transfer profound spiritual knowledge to the human being and enlighten him in all questions and doubts concerning God and eternity. They give him clarification about their actual task on earth. They only impart purest, most enlightened truth because they are in direct contact with God. But beings which have not yet reached this degree, which are still ignorant themselves because they are imperfect, likewise try to transfer their thoughts to people because the instinct to communicate is inherent in all of them. But these thoughts do not correspond to the truth, since they do not know the truth themselves and are in erroneous thinking due to God-opposing influence. And consequently they also try to push the human being's thoughts into a direction which corresponds more to the will of God's adversary. They direct them towards earthly things because this knowledge is closer to them. Thus earthly thoughts are also influenced by the beings in the beyond in a certain sense. They are immediately received and processed by the organs of thought, whereas spiritual thoughts are born in the heart, because then Spirit of Light speaks to Spirit of Light. Because the spirit in the human being, the divine spark, receives the light being's expression and now directs it from the heart to the brain, where the human being's will incorporates it into his thought material. It is always an exchange of thoughts from the beyond to earth. But which beings express themselves is determined by the human being himself through his will. In his desire for the world he is accessible to the influence of those beings which are still earthly minded and therefore have little spiritual knowledge, and if they express themselves about it they only convey erroneous thoughts to the human being. In contrast, the truth-desiring human being, whose striving is aimed at spiritual knowledge, will only be considered by bearers of truth. These will transfer their strength to the human being in the form of thoughts, and the human being must become knowledgeable if he respects such thoughts. For they did not come forth from him himself. Thought is spiritual knowledge. Thus something imperishable which does not end with the human being's death but continues to exist in the spiritual kingdom, only harboring truth or error according to the human being's will and way of life. And the beings of the beyond try to transfer both to earth by trying to influence the human being's thinking. Amen.